There are a number of very qualified nominees that the President has put forward, and if we can get those across the finish line this week, and we intend to, that would put us on pace to have 95% of the President's nominees done. And that is a rate that puts us ahead of every Congress going back for the last 25 years, every Senate I should say. And I think there are somewhere on the order in the last Trump administration at this point of about 155 nominees that hadn't been acted on or confirmed, and this would have it at about that number at about 6. So we're going to be way ahead of pace of the historical average, and I think that's really important to ensure the President has his people in place so that he can do the job the American people elected him to do. The other thing, of course, we need to do is to fund the government, and credit to Chair Collins and her team working with Democrats and Republicans to come up with a plan that will fund the government beyond the election into December. We were able to get on that bill last night with a very big bipartisan vote, and I hope we can continue down that path and ensure that we have funded the government, taken a government shutdown off the table. We've had 2 of those, as you know, in the last year. They are incredibly painful for the American people. And it's important, in my view, that we demonstrate to the American people that we can do job one, and that job one is ensuring that their federal government is working and funded. So that will also be something that between now and the end of this week, or however long we're here, we intend to accomplish. And so we will keep you posted on other things. There are other issues out there. We had a discussion about some of them at lunch, and we'll continue to have those conversations and figure out as we attempt at least to get these things stacked up and get as many things done as possible, that we stay on pace to do that.
Leader Thune, are you isolated by the President when he says he wants you to stay in session, wants you to pass the Save America Act?
Well, I think the President, I've heard from a couple times this morning on issues that he cares about. I wouldn't say I'm isolated, no. I mean, I've been very clear about the prospects for the Save America Act, and the only thing I've said all along is we have voted on the Save America Act 5 times. It was the pending business on the floor of the Senate for over 2 weeks, and I am willing to, in any way possible, get that across the finish line if there is a path to do it. But there are 2 realities and 2 facts you have to deal with. And the first is there are no Democrats who are going to vote for this. All 47 voted against the SAVE Act 5 times. So let's make this an issue in the campaign. How about we go out and turn our fire on Democrats and make it about them opposing the SAVE Act?
So
we're not, that's the point. So we're not getting any Democrats. The second thing is we are not getting rid of the legislative filibuster. The votes aren't there to do that. I've made it abundantly clear many, many times. And it seems to me some days that I'm the only one here who can count to 50 in this town, but we don't have the votes to get rid of the filibuster, and we aren't flipping 10 Democrats to vote for the Save America Act. So those 2 realities are there. Now, is there somewhere in here with budget reconciliation that we can do pieces of the Save America Act, or at least in a fiscal way deal with funding for some of those things? Maybe, and we'll see what the draft will bear on that. We're having conversations, as you know, right now about that proposition, so we'll keep you posted.
One of the members of your conference, Senator Bernie Moreno, is publicly calling on Max Miller's former son-in-law to resign from Congress amid these allegations. Do you side with Senator Bernie Moreno, and should Max Miller resign?
It's a very sad and unfortunate case. It is a family matter, and I don't have any observations beyond that.
Senator, if a member of Congress is facing allegations of domestic abuse, should they continue to serve in that role?
Well, are you talking about this particular case?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think again that's something that the House of Representatives, House matter, and obviously, as I said before, it's a family issue too in this case. But I think those decisions on the future there are going to be made ultimately by the people of Ohio, and I think that's true. And I would say that of any similar case, it ultimately comes down. It's an issue between the whoever that person is and the voters that they represent, and then obviously the institution in which they serve. And when we've had circumstances like this, we refer them to the Senate Ethics Committee. Senator Langford, who chairs that committee, is here. And there is a process by which those determinations get made.
The Democrats seem to be suffering from heartburn over ag chair Bozeman's latest farm bill proposal to increase penalty against states that don't bring down their payment error rates, their overpayments, to bring them down significantly and increase that penalty from 15% to 20%. Do you think this is a showstopper for the Farm Bill to be acted where you sit, and especially since Mitch McConnell, the tie-breaking vote on that committee, is still out?
I think that that issue is one on which we made what I think were significant reforms last year. And those reforms need to get implemented. Now, for states who are out of compliance, we allowed plenty of time. There's a lag here, there's a delay, there's time for them to come into compliance. But there are way too many states who are gaming the program. And the abuse rate, the fraud rate in some of those programs and the way that states are abusing them needed to be addressed. And we did it. And I hope that we can retain those reforms and, for example, work requirements. And the work requirements imposed under that legislation last summer were less, I guess I would say, less even restrictive than what was done by the Clinton administration back in the 1990s. These were programs that were desperately in need of reform, and states which have been gaming these programs. So making sure that the dollars are spent wisely and well on the people who they're designed to serve and not being abused and taken advantage of by states around the country is something that we want to preserve in the bill. So there are some things, the changes that Chairman Bozeman is making that I think are consistent with that objective, but make it that allow states to have the time in which to enact the reforms that are necessary to get them into compliance. But they need to get in compliance.
So can you talk about the impact you think Israel is going to have, not only on these primary elections, but the upcoming general election? One of the polls shows Americans increasingly frustrated with the leadership in Israel. Do you feel confident that your candidates are on the right side of that issue, and how do you think it could impact the election?
Depends on the state and the individual voters in any of these states. But clearly there are some states where you have, and I would say the Democrat Party, the progressive wing of the party, has moved increasingly left on that and more anti-Israel. I think a lot of our candidates who are out there running are going to have to make their own determinations about the individual issues as they pertain to our relationship with Israel, which is one of our strongest allies, as we all know, in the entire world, certainly in the Middle East. And so individual candidates are going to have to get comfortable with how they articulate their views about that relationship, and that's probably going to vary from state to state. But is it an issue? Yeah. I mean, I think it's an issue every election, perhaps even more so this year. But I believe our candidates are well positioned to win, and I think they are set up for success. We have quality candidates in all the key competitive races around the country. They are going to be well resourced, and my hope would be that when it's all said and done, we're going to preserve and protect our majority here in the United States Senate. One last question.
Leader Thune, on the Russia sanctions bill, Democrats and Rand Paul want an amendment to strip out the tariffs from this legislation. Are you going to allow that, and do you think that would pass?
I think if there's a right now we're trying to get a limited time agreement. We have some objections that we're dealing with on Russia sanctions, one of which has to deal with that issue. And my assumption is if they're willing to yield back time in exchange for an amendment vote, that we would probably offer that vote up. And so it could be a Rand Paul, Ron Wyden amendment. I'm not sure exactly how that gets structured yet, but I would like to at least have some closure on Russia sanctions. And in order to do that, we've got to have a clear understanding of what the demands are in terms of amendments. And it seems to me at least they are both headed in the same direction, and that might be one amendment vote that we could accommodate that would enable us to finish that bill and get it done. And I think all of us here would like to see that, certainly as a tribute to Senator Graham, but also because it's important with respect to what's happening not only in Ukraine but in the Middle East.
Leader, what is the status on Clarity Act?
Far from clear.
Taxpayers fund these grants. Taxpayers deserve to see that money and have it invested in their communities, not withheld by Donald Trump as partisan retribution, which is what he seems to specialize in. Senate Democrats have stood up for working Americans at every step of the process and will continue to fight for the American people in the approach process. On Blanche, Senate Republicans again just rubber-stamped Trump's corruption with their vote to advance Todd Blanche from the Judiciary Committee. Make no mistake, Blanche has no intention of stopping Trump's corruption. He spent his whole career enabling it. Instead of seeing Blanche's so-called deal for the sham that it is, Republicans are once again taking Trump's personal attorney at his word. Shame. Clearly, the Senate GOP is willing to go along with Trump's tax fraud, Trump's egregious, breathtaking corruption, and let's not forget that Blanche still hasn't released 3 million pages of Epstein files. Blanche has no business becoming Attorney General. Senator Murray.
Well, as last night's vote made very clear, no one wants a shutdown. It is a good thing that we were able to come together to produce a reasonable CR that addresses some key problems with the CR that the House Republicans passed, and that will give us a runway we need to reach a bipartisan agreement on funding levels and then negotiate the bills for the coming year. The bill closes the loophole in the Republicans' bill, which would have allowed funding to be transferred to the Border Patrol. No reforms, no new money. It's that simple. The CR also adds important language to extend authorization for key programs and ensures there is enough funding to, for example, make sure low-income seniors have food on their tables. It rejects the wish list President Trump requested for the Pentagon. There is no funding for the so-called Trump-class battleships, for example, and this bill does nothing to fulfill his $70 billion request to bankroll his disastrous Iran war. Thanks to Democrats, this bill will block OMB's corrupt new grants rule from taking effect for the duration of the CR. What Trump and Russ Vought want is the ability to take every federal grant in America hostage. They are not interested in making our tax dollars work better. They just want them to work for Donald Trump. Cancer research, bridges, hospitals. Under that rule, a Trump appointee could decide to strip funding for almost anything. No cause, no notice, no appeal. So Democrats said, no way. Every single Democrat joined me in demanding OMB withdraw the rule. Today, it is on ice. I did try to stop this rule outright in the negotiations, but my Republican colleagues wouldn't agree to do that. This rule is delayed. It is not dead. I absolutely intend to kill it. Republicans also rejected our efforts to prevent Russ Vought from attempting an illegal pocket rescission, protecting Congress's constitutional power of the purse, as well as our push to extend the critical advanced appropriations provided by the bipartisan infrastructure law, which will expire on October 1st. So this isn't the end. We've got a lot of work to do, and I'm going to keep pushing. And the CR we overwhelmingly voted to advance last night will allow us to keep the government funded while those conversations continue. Because, make no mistake, we have a lot of work ahead of us to do. When it comes to this year's spending bills, Democrats have one North Star: making life affordable again. This president and Republicans have other ideas. Trump wants $1.5 trillion war budget and cuts to domestic programs. Senate Republicans are doing their darndest to meet the president's request. So far, they have proposed an absolutely massive increase for the Pentagon, with offers that would provide over 4 new defense dollars for every new dollar invested in our communities here at home. Senate Democrats have made it very clear that is not going to fly. So I'm ready as ever to use the time this CR provides to reach a reasonable bipartisan top-line funding agreement, which will allow us to negotiate strong bipartisan funding bills. That is our job. It's what our families back home expect of us. I'm ready to get it done.
Senator Schatz.
No one wanted to see another government shutdown, and last night's big bipartisan vote reflects that. We worked on a bipartisan basis to write a clean CR, which gives us the time to negotiate these spending bills. But let's be perfectly clear, the spending bills that we have yet to negotiate need to reflect the reality of people's lives, not whatever new project or war Donald Trump is consumed by at that moment. The cost of everything has gone up, and that is intentional. The cost of everything has gone up, and that is intentional. Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, the Affordable Care Act, the war, gasoline prices, diesel prices, utility costs, the national ban on solar and wind energy, and the tariffs. These are not accidentally causing prices to go up. They are designed to cause prices to go up. And so we're going to work very hard to lower costs and deliver relief to the people through these bills, and we hope and expect that Republicans will join us. We have a long way to go, but yesterday was a reasonable start.
No, right here.
Can we talk about today's primaries? We obviously have a big primary in Michigan, and there's a possibility that there's a progressive candidate winning, and we're all excited. How do you feel about the way your candidates are running this primary season? And what do you say to critics that say that some of these folks that are getting nominated are too far to the left?
Look,
states like Michigan?
in Michigan, we are going to beat the Republicans. We're going to take Michigan, and we're going to win back the Senate. Plain and simple. Yes.
The NDA.
Quiet. You can't yell that loud. You're louding even yeller than you used to. Well, I call on you. I do. You get your chances.
There's no sign of the NDA being brought up again on the GOP agenda this week. If the war in Iran is still going on in September, is it fair to say your caucus will continue to oppose?
Look,
bringing up
the Republicans should not expect, Trump should not expect business as usual when they're engaged in an aimless war that is raising the cost for American people, losing lives, tearing apart our alliances. No business as usual. Yes. Go ahead.
In Michigan, I know you endorse Haley Stevens, but if outside Glenn wins this primary, will you endorse the winner of the primary?
Bottom line, we are going to win Michigan, take back the Senate, and have a majority. And Manu.
Thank you. Is the rise of the DSA good for your party?
Look, we are a big tent party. And being a big tent party is a strength, not a weakness.
Leader Schumer.
Thank you, everybody.
That's right.